I just spent an entire year farming with nothing but rusty vintage equipment from the 1960s and 80s. No modern GPS tractors, no massive harvesters, just pure old-school farming that would make your grandfather proud. The results? Well, let's just say it was absolutely brutal, but incredibly rewarding. Stick around because this journey will change how you think about farming in Farming Simulator 25. Today, I'm taking you through my complete one-year vintage farming challenge where I restricted myself to only using equipment manufactured between 1960 and 1980. This wasn't just about nostalgia. This was about experiencing the raw, unfiltered difficulty of farming the way it used to be done. Before we dive in, let me introduce you to my vintage fleet that would become both my best friends and my worst enemies over the next 12 months. First up, we have my trusty but rusty John Deere 710. And when I say rusty, I mean this thing looks like it's been through 3 decades of Nebraska winters. But hey, if it can still turn over, it can still work, right? Next, there's the Fiat 1300DT. This Italian beauty became my workhorse for lighter duties. And finally, the star of the show, my Kloss harvester. Now, compared to modern harvesters, this thing moves at the speed of molasses, but it has character that no modern machine can match. With all the supporting equipment needed for authentic 1960s to 80s farming, I was ready to step back in time. August hit like a sledgehammer. It was early morning, and my first priority was fieldwork, specifically harvesting the barley on one of my fields. Now, here's where reality hit hard. With modern equipment, this would take maybe 30 minutes. With my vintage Kloss harvester, we're talking hours, people. Hours. The header on this old beast is tiny compared to what we're used to, and the processing speed makes you appreciate just how far agricultural technology has come. But there's something almost meditative about the slow, steady rhythm of vintage harvesting. After what felt like an eternity, I finally got that barley harvested. Jumping into my rusty old John Deere, I hooked up the trailer and transported every grain to my silo. The feeling of accomplishment was incredible. This is farming in its purest form. But the day wasn't over. I enlisted my cousin's help to tackle the canola harvest on my second field, while I switched to my trusty Fiat to start baling the barley straw. Each bale took forever to form, but watching that perfectly shaped bale roll out never gets old. Here's where things got interesting. The animal dealer contacted me desperately needing straw bales. Perfect timing. I sold every single bale I had and managed to earn my first real money of the season. Not a fortune, but hey, every dollar counts when you're farming like it's 1975. With both crops harvested, it was time for the real test, plowing. If you think harvesting with vintage equipment is slow, plowing will test your patience like nothing else. I fired up that John Deere and began what I can only describe as the longest plowing session of my virtual life. But you know what? I genuinely love this pace. There's something beautiful about farming when you can't just blitz through a field in 5 minutes. It forces you to appreciate every furrow, every turn, every moment of the process that modern farming often rushes past. I let my cousin finish up the plowing while I jumped back into the Fiat for cultivation duties. This process, plow, cultivate, repeat, became my life across all 3 fields. Time-consuming? Absolutely. Rewarding? You bet. Decision time arrived for my newly prepared fields. For the field that previously grew canola, I decided to stick with what worked. More canola. After sowing, I made sure to fertilize because with this equipment, I needed every advantage I could get to maximize my yields. But farming isn't just about crops. My animals needed attention too. I loaded wheat into my trailer and delivered it to my chicken coop. Then came the water run, filling up my barrel trailer and making sure my cow pasture was properly hydrated. And I can't forget about my 4-legged security system. My farm dog needed his food bowl filled. He's not just decoration. He's the guardian of this vintage operation. That wrapped up August, but this was just the beginning of my year-long journey. September rolled around with the familiar routine of checking on my entire operation, chickens, cows, and every field. With 2 empty fields staring at me, it was time to make some planting decisions. I chose barley for both, a reliable crop that I knew could handle my vintage approach. After sowing and fertilizing both fields, my cows started demanding attention. Time for a grass-cutting expedition. I attached the mower to my Fiat and began the slow, methodical process of cutting grass. But cutting grass is just step one in vintage hay production. Next came tedding, spreading that cut grass so it could properly dry into hay. Then, the windrower came out to create perfect rows for baling. Finally, the baler turned all that hard work into 5 beautiful hay bales. Those 5 bales went straight to my cow pasture to feed my 3 Angus cattle. But I wasn't satisfied with my herd size, so I made a big investment, 11 Holstein cows, all 0 months old. This was a gamble that would either pay off big or drain my resources, but that's farming for you. October brought the usual livestock checkups, but more importantly, it was time for the second fertilization of my fields. With vintage equipment, maximizing yield isn't just smart, it's essential for survival. Here's where I made a strategic decision that would change my entire operation. I built a greenhouse. Winter was coming, and I needed a reliable food source plus additional income streams. This wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving with vintage methods. I loaded up my barrel trailer with water and filled that greenhouse, preparing to grow every available crop. Chili peppers, garlic, lettuce, Napa cabbage, spring onion, strawberries, and tomatoes. 7 different crops that would keep me busy and profitable through the harsh winter months. November arrived with promising signs. My greenhouse crops were actually growing. Meanwhile, my chickens had become reliable egg producers, creating another steady income stream. The water runs continued. Both the cow pasture and greenhouse demanded constant attention. January hit with brutal cold. When you're farming vintage style, heating becomes a real concern. I grabbed my axe and headed into my own woods to cut firewood for heating my house. This isn't just gameplay. It's authentic 1970s farm life simulation. February continued the winter routine, checking chickens, cows, and greenhouse operations. With fields frozen solid, animal care and greenhouse management became my primary focus. These quiet months taught me patience and the importance of diversification in vintage farming. By May, my greenhouse had transformed into a production powerhouse. I harvested 1,000 liters each of garlic, chili peppers, strawberries, Napa cabbage, lettuce, spring onion, and tomatoes. Plus, my chickens had produced nearly a full pallet of eggs. Loading everything into my trailer felt like Christmas morning. I transported the entire haul to my kiosks for sale, and the results were incredible, around $16,000 in revenue. This proved that vintage farming, while slow, could be incredibly profitable with the right strategy. June marked the return of harvest season. My 2 barley fields had matured beautifully, and it was time to fire up that old Klaas harvester once again. The familiar, slow rhythm returned. Methodical, careful, but ultimately satisfying. As always, I couldn't waste the straw. After harvesting, I baled every bit of leftover straw and sold those bales to the animal dealer. Every resource matters when you're farming vintage style, and straw sales provided crucial additional income. July brought the canola harvest, the crop I'd been nurturing since the previous year. Once again, that trusty Klaas harvester proved its worth, slowly but surely processing every plant. I transported all the canola to my silo, but here's where strategy came into play. Instead of selling immediately, I decided to wait for better market prices. This patience paid off. Canola was at its lowest price point, and waiting for the market to recover would maximize my profits from an entire year of vintage farming. And that marks the end of my incredible 1-year journey, farming exclusively with equipment from the 1960s through 1980s. This wasn't just a gaming challenge, it was a masterclass in patience, strategy, and appreciating the roots of modern agriculture. Did it take an enormous amount of time compared to modern farming methods? Absolutely. Was every minute worth it? Without question. This experience taught me to slow down, appreciate each step of the farming process, and understand the incredible dedication of farmers who worked with this equipment in real life. Now I want to hear from you. Have you attempted a vintage equipment challenge in Farming Simulator 25? What era would you choose for your own throwback farming experience? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I love hearing about your farming adventures. If this journey inspired you or entertained you, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future vintage farming challenges and unique gameplay experiences. Ready for another incredible farming journey? Check out the video I've linked on your screen right now for even more farming simulator adventures. Until next time, keep those vintage engines running, and I'll catch you in the next journey.